gonna set you on the microphone here. Check, check. Ooh, that's not good.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
There's a webinar tomorrow night, environmental.
It's about Bill 5 as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And the webinar, the environmental defense. Are
Okay, that looks much better. So we should be able to hear that live stream now.
Okay.
So I can bring you back to there and you should be good.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Oh.
Just be a screen anyway.
Okay, and so we have like Arvana displaying the new Falcon Watch T-shirts. So this is where we get into the better news, because with our peregrines, this is what happens when you take care of your species. This is why we need to take care of our species. So before Pat sits down, like just come up again. This is Pat Baker. She helps to run the Falcon Watch team. So if you want to volunteer with Falcon Watch, there's at the end of this month, on the almost the end of the month,
23rd.
on the 23rd, and she will point you in the right direction and give you your marching orders. So if you are emailing with her or whoever, this is Pat.
Actually, you'll be emailing with Leah Schwenger, who looks after the volunteers, and we're banding on the 22nd. The time is set at 11 in the morning. Hopefully there'll be a live coverage from the room where the banding is done, and we have, for the first time ever, we had 4 chicks hatch within 12 and a half hours. It's never been less than 2 or 3 days before, so we've got 4 very active chicks.
And if you love Falcon Watch, get a t-shirt.
This is the new
Proceeds,
t-shirt.
some of the proceeds go to the HNC to help support the Falcon Watch program. And then just celebrate what the great things that happen when you take care of your species, like peregrines. If you like eavesdropping on a family, you can check out the Falcon Watch Cam, because that's kind of what it feels like, is that you're eavesdropping. So there's like some happy news after this ad, and a good demonstration of, you have a species that was endangered, you take care of them, and now we get to watch them because they're still important special species, but not because there's only like 3 of them left. So yeah, I encourage you to check out the volunteering opportunities, or just go hang out with folks at in the parking lot across from the Sheraton Hotel and just get out the scoop on what's happening with the family. And then other volunteer opportunities, the wood duck, always looking for photos and things like that. And so if you're somebody looking for the wood duck email, so there it is, there you go. And then field event leaders. So if you have somewhere that you want to take people on a field event, you can contact Peter. His email is there. And yeah, it can be a big outing, a little outing, anything at all. Share a space that you like going to. If you think you don't know enough, don't worry, there will be people there that will help out. And leading by group is really fun. And then joining the board. If you want to know what's fun, joining the board, super fun. There's a few board members who can agree to that. Jean, don't laugh. So they're currently looking for a grants and fundraising director, just to add to the fun. But if you are interested in something like that, or even just in learning more about the board, you can contact Charlie, and his email is there. And then upcoming events, we're going to go and see Herps at the end of the month with Allison Ford. Details are on the calendar. And there will be social media posts coming up as well. And then, so we're leading right into our talk. I didn't have as much to say this month. So I was just gonna jump into our talk, but does anybody have any questions? This is our last meeting. I don't think I mentioned that. This is our last meeting till September, because we're supposed to want to be outside and enjoying stuff. Yeah.
So like, the ecologist you just mentioned, is that happens to be the person that runs the fish wedding thing, basically? You know what I'm saying? That counts the fish?
No.
No?
No, different person, different expert.
Oh.
Yeah, but this one knows just as much, so she'll be able to share lots of great things. Anybody else have it? Yeah, Charlie.
So in addition to Allison, her walk at the end of the month, Jeff Dickey's going to do a tree walk on the Bruce Trail at the top of Dunder Stairs, Wednesday, May 21st, if anyone's interested. So Jeff's a fantastic arborist who's done tours before at Gage Park for the club, but so I just booked that. Too late to add to your PowerPoint, sorry.
Okay, so keep checking the calendar. That's the take home, because things will just be added as people are like, hey, I saw this and I want to share it. Keep checking the calendar. And really the big thing is like just be outside and enjoy being outside. And so that's enough about me, because we're really all here to hear Mary share stories about the great work, as I mentioned, the great work that the Long Point Basin Land Trust is doing to protect really special spaces in Norfolk, which is like everywhere. In Norfolk is very special. We were just talking about that when we've been at Spooky lately. So that's our nature sanctuary. For those who aren't familiar with Spooky Hollow Nature Sanctuary, that's our nature sanctuary that we acquired in 1961 that is in Norfolk. And so, you know, because of that property, we're able to experience some of the Norfolk County magic. And that's what Mary is going to talk about tonight. Mary is naturalist extraordinaire, who there's a number of us who think knows pretty much everything we need to know about taking care of lands and restoring lands, ecological restoration. Been a great asset to our work at Spooky, as well as Amalo and lots of other properties as well. So we're really excited to have Mary join us tonight. I'm just going to invite Mary up so she can talk about herself and what she's talking about instead of me like making it up. And then Tech Guy is going to do his Tech Guy thing, and then here's the pass off. Yeah.
All
Do you
right.
need anything else?
He's just getting your thing up there.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, and this will hit play. So you get that, and we should be good.
And can I read my notes?
So notes will be there when we come.
Okay,
So when
okay.
you click, you should see them there.
Okay. So that's working for this, right? The technology changes all the time. Unfortunately, we're at the beginning of all this technology and have to suffer through changing our way of thinking about every 2 weeks when you have a Mac, if you don't throw it out the window first. Anyway, tonight we're going to touch on some of the things that the Long Point Basin Land Trust is working on, and some of the properties we've recently acquired, as well as how we make decisions about what to acquire. So this is a very big snapping turtle, and I figured it was the only animal I had a photograph that would be older than me. So good. Okay, hopefully I can read this. I've got cheater notes here, so this is a satellite image where we looked, dark red is areas of special concern or collections of areas, and the white areas are ones that we don't necessarily look at. So when we're making decisions about a property, we ask ourselves, is it inside these red zones, which are high quality, next to high quality areas with good species lists? Then it's one of our reasons when we apply for funds. We use these, the thinking behind this. So it'll take me a minute to get started here. Okay. So those are all the hot zones for conservation in southern Norfolk sandplain. There's also a blue line around the area, and that's priority place. And originally, the priority place, probably about 5 years ago, was a federal program that started in Ontario in the Long Point area. And I think it's now spread throughout the Carolinian zone. So it's, it just works with groups to talk about conservation of the important areas and to have solve problems these areas might have. So this is the same coloration, but it's in greater detail and is showing you, showing you Spooky Hollow Nature Reserve here, and the new property that we just purchased in here. This is several other owners, so Conservation Authority, Hamilton Naturalist Club, Turkey Point Provincial Park, St. William's Conservation Reserve is part of the old forestry station, and it's the Turkey Point Park. And there's little bits and pieces around that are high quality. You can see this area is in red. This is all forested. This is another property that was purchased by the Conservation Authority, but it's was funded by the Hamilton Naturalist Club. Of course, they've been logging it and getting good money for it. Well, the rest of us sort of get a bit annoyed. So all of these areas are a collection inside those red zones. So my cheater notes are needing a pair of glasses. So moving on, this is a map showing, let's move farther than, sorry. It's not synced. Sorry. See, it's showing me this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let me get you there. Okay, now forward.
okay. So,
Go forward. It should.
or this,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it should be
I
synced up again.
probably hit the wrong button
That's
there. So this is a close-up of the property that was acquired. It was owned by Lynn Patterson. I think for a while she may have been a member of the Hamilton Naturalist Club. And she bought it just to protect it. And she passed away, and her partner he was concerned about the amount of tax he would have to pay, so he put it on the market. And luckily we found out about it right away. We drove by, there's a sign on it, so we were able to purchase it. And in part because we've got donations of funds. So this is Fisher's Creek south of Spooky Hollow. And the interesting part about this is Fisher's Creek, and it's a floodplain. It's really beautiful and natural. This is during the winter, so you can see how much conifer there is. This is good conifer, but this is an old agricultural field that's been sitting without any management since 1997, somewhere around that date. So there were hedgerows of white spruce and Norway spruce, And they've seeded into these areas. So we've been starting to work on making this much more of a natural, deciduous, open sort of parkland area. There's a sort of a sand area there. It's a little bit more clay down here. This was planted by the Conservation Authority with our baby black oaks and white pine. Every other one was a white pine or black oak. The black oaks, bless them, they are bigger than the white pines now, and they're allowing the ice to break up the white pines and they're falling apart. So we're not too worried about that yet. So that's sort of an overview. It's a winter view of the property. This is a summer view. You can see that a lot of really nice deciduous forest up here and along the creek. This is the center of the creek. There's a lot of cedar and hemlock, mountain maple, etc. So it's 112 acres. So this is a group of friends and funders that we took on a walk down to the stream. So we made a little path first for them. But you can see how rich the plants are. When we walked through the forest, we found this white cedar stump. It must have been a meter, excuse me, a meter through. It was a dead stub, but it is incredibly large, so we know that that has been a forest for a long time. Also, lots of juvenile black ash. Emerald ash borer has killed all the mature ash in Norfolk County and much of all the ash that occur in Ontario. And these are black ash seedlings. And ash trees do produce seed when they're quite young. So we hope that some of these will produce seed before they get the emerald ash borer. So good genetics. And of course, some of the trees are falling down. With a windstorm went through the middle and knocked down some of the trees. But notice there's almost no weeds here. Well, there's actually a few weeds on top there. This is perfect habitat for a nest of Louisiana water thrush. Lots of interesting plants coming in that sort of well-lit area. But so it's quite fun to walk through. So this is a plant that migratory birds like. Okay, I'll watch it. Thank you. This is spikenard, and this is a plant that has a lot of berries on it, and they ripen in the fall, and they're perfect for warblers. They're just the right size. The warblers always clean up the seed. So those plants, I haven't seen a lot in some of the forests I used to see them in, but they're quite common in this area. So. And next to the stream, those little, that's dwarf equisetum. And you rarely see that except in sort of more northern habitats, but it's all along the stream. And the stream is really quite beautiful, clear water, a good trout stream. It also has salmon coming up from Long Point Bay. But a lot of white cedar and eastern hemlock, and a lot of openings. The old agricultural field looks like this, and it's interesting because there is, a flowering dogwood that's self-sown into the field. Then there's gray dogwood and the taller Drummond's dogwood. There are a lot of dogwoods there, but that's good. There is also a lot of weeds, and autumn olive, I think you could actually make board feed out of it. It's so big. But we have a person that can come in and treat those, and he did a really good job. There's thousands of them in there, and most of them are dead this year. So we're pleased about that. But there's Tatarian honeysuckle, common buckthorn, autumn olive, oriental bittersweet, just all through this field. But there's also native trees. So some of the native trees are red maple, trembling aspen, black cherry, black oak, seeded in, maybe even from our baby black oaks. They're big enough. And it's quite a large area. So one of the things we started doing is drill and fill the big old spruce that have seeded in huge areas. So we're drilling holes in it and squirting in a little bit of either Roundup or Garlon to make the trees, to kill the trees. It takes quite a while, maybe 6 months to kill the trees, but we leave them standing. So the woodpeckers and other species will enjoy them in the future. But it's.
I think you're out of sync again.
Oh.
Let's see here. I noticed on the live stream it was off a bit. There we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Very good.
I'm probably doing it and don't know it, although it's sort of moving itself. So there's red oak and some Scots pine and red maple. There's the black oak coming in along the edges, and so that's interesting. And it's clayey soil there. There's a Scots pine. There's lots of Scots pine. And unfortunately, underneath the Scots pine and the other pines and spruces is garlic mustard. So I'm going to move on and talk about Norfolk County and some of the species that we see. And everybody's getting keen on moths now. So this is 2 moths that are actually on our farm. The gray moth is shivering. What?
Is it out of sync again?
I don't think so.
Oh, no.
No, it's okay. It's behaving so far. I've warned it. So shivering pinion, there's only 2 ever seen in Canada, and that's right in Norfolk County on our farm and on one of our nature reserves. And that's a few years ago. There's records in lower New York State and Pennsylvania, but there were no records here. So that's that gray one. It's a winter moth. Sorry, go back. The other one, the pink one, is called the pink streak, and it feeds on switchgrass, which is one of the grasses we plant for openings and prairie areas. And we have it in our garden, and we have the pink streak.
I think the back button is causing issues. There we go. So
Yeah.
there we go.
Okay. So, the first one there from the top is a beautiful Utilia, feeds on poison sumac. Then this one is called Hebrew, and it feeds on black gum, which is also a Carolinian species. And this is Melsheimer's, let me grab this for a minute. This isn't really ideal, but anyway, sack bearer it's called, and that's from the caterpillar, and it feeds on swamp white oak. And the last one is the pink prominent, and it feeds on dwarf chinkapin oak. And we have rows of seed-producing dwarf chinkapin oak, so we catch this moth, but most people don't see it. They might see it if they go to Pinery Provincial Park, but otherwise you never see that. So this is some of the diversity that we're seeing in reserves. And So, sorry, next. So just when we think about restoring areas, we look for connections between species. So when we do the butterfly count in the summer, July, we get Edward's hair streak. You can see Edward's hair streaks, little guy right here. One of our counts had more Edward's hair streaks than any other count in North America. So it's associated with black oak and is helped by these patches of butterfly weed. Virginia mountain mint, which there used to be a patch of, I saw it. Actually, my niece Megan walked by it with the other botanist and didn't notice it, and he accused me of taking it out of my pocket, and I said, no, the plant's right over there. You walked right by it. Anyway, so it does occur in Ancaster, probably around where the new highways 403 are, around that area. And it's a favorite of all the pollinators. There's more nectar in Virginia mountain mint than the next, 10 times more than the next best tested plant. So every bee operator should have this stuff, but the monarchs like it. A photographer once went down our Virginia mountain mint row and said, well, maybe I'll take a few pictures. 4 hours and 7 rolls later, he appeared, and ever since he's photographed insects. So it can be quite fun. So the other thing we do, we've got around Port Rowan is Haldeman clay plain. It's a disjunct Haldeman clay plain, but it could have these species, or we've lost those species. So this is Virginia bluebells, and it is in Haldeman. So a lot of those Haldeman woodlands can give you a reference site for what you want to try and create in other heavy clay areas. Really dry, sandy areas, we put together mixes. This is longleaf bluettes, and it's a favorite flowering plant or nectaring plant for Carner blue. It was when we had Carner blue. Carner blue disappeared probably, and a few other butterflies, probably when they sprayed BT to kill spongy moth. So there's consequences. So we collect the seed from this. The seeds are very small, but they're powerful. So this is a species that you want to have in sand barrens, including probably a few cleared areas in those pine plantations in Spooky Hollow. So recently, Long Point Basin Land Trust acquired 2 properties. And one is, if you know the Jackson Gun Old Growth Forest, it's an old growth forest of 23 acres that the Land Trust, it was the first purchase by Long Point Basin Land Trust. And it's basically beech maple, but the beech are dying because of 2 diseases, beech bark disease and a leaf disease, which is caused by almost an airborne nematode, if you can imagine it. It's just in the dust, and it destroys the leaves. So unfortunately, that's probably going to kill all the beech. So across the road was this 100-acre property, which is was owned by a local farmer. It's all wetland. This is all wetland. High priority area because it's next to one of these areas, and there's other nice forests there. This is Clear Creek. It's a cold water stream that runs all over the place in the southwestern part of Norfolk County. It's kind of hard to track, but so we just finished seeding this field. This is about 4 hectares of field, and we had the help from a neighbor who's a Gunn, Jason Gunn, and he tilled it perfectly. It was really good. And we just finished sowing it with about 100 species. So nuts, acorns, pignut hickory, and then on to some grasses, barren ground or prairie grasses, and lots of wildflowers and shrubs. So, and right next door, sorry, it's the next slide, I think, yeah, is this property here, and this field is just under 4 hectares, and we just seeded that as well. It's just down the road. So Clear Creek this is about 5 kilometers down the road, and Clear Creek is there too. It's all over the place. Anyway, and it's beside a series of forests that have been protected by Paul DeCluet and his brother. This belongs to the county, one to us, and then he's got further properties down. So Paul loves tulip trees, so he's been managing tulip trees. And there's a very nice trail. If you get to Norfolk County, there's a very nice trail through here. So just a little bit on how we do restoration work when we have the chance on these properties. And it's the same restoration work that was done for the Hamilton Naturalist Club a few years ago, which was quite a small parcel. The name escapes me. Sorry? Mallow? Amallow, right, okay. So this was the method. We used 2 carousel planters with, and we, there's 6 holes, and they're used for plug planting, like vegetables, tomatoes, whatever. And we use it to plant nuts. And so there's 2 together, and you can plant nuts at 123 nuts per minute, which is about 29,000 per 4 hours that you might work in the day. It's way easier than planting trees. The nuts actually know what to do. You dig up a little oak tree and you plant it in a field and it dies, or it gets eaten by a deer or a rabbit or something. But you plant these so thick that nothing eats them because they can't find them and they don't have fertilizer in them, so they're not tasty. And so they do quite well. And some of them, people think that they've done too well. But anyway, it's a little bit hard to get people to ride on this for 4 hours, but John Wellhauser is a good volunteer, and he did some work. So this is made in Minnesota, starts with M, and it's a Truax wildflower seeder, and the front trough is for little hard seeds, the middle part is for fluffy seeds, and James Truax, the inventor, who I met at a conference in the US, and he's sitting there, he's a big guy smoking a stogie, and no one's talking to him because they're all biologists, and he's the guy that invented this machine. So I said, you know, it's a great machine, they work well for our stuff, but we have to, we have to make some modifications. So the fluffy seed has augers through the middle that are horizontal, and they turn and break up. Fluffy seed always bundles up, especially if you put Canada Wild Rye, because the awns are long and they get tangled up and you just can't break them up. But it does it. And then it has slots with a little fan of teeth that pulls the seed down into the, and there's no drill in this, there's just a chute, all the seed goes and lands on the surface. We mix millet, white millet with the seed, so you can see where you've been working, but also white millet is a really good cover crop for these projects. So that's the machine. And we collect seeds in our yard, and we give them to our sister, and she makes jam with them and sends it back at Christmas. This plum is very edible. So we collect seeds from those, or clean these. These are dwarf chinkapin oak seeds, but all of our seeds are hand collected in the wild, hand cleaned, and we put on a much less rate on our restoration fields than most people do, and things do fine and look good. So this is what it looks like in the first year, and you experienced that, and we just will have to get our board on side when they see it like this in the newly planted areas, because it's going to look like this maybe. But you just ignore the weeds, they figure it out, and the next year it's quite unbelievable, it looks like that. So the weeds die down, they disappear, they need disturbance, you just don't worry about them. And some of them are native anyway, so. Then this is about 8 years later. Those are all hazels, black oaks coming up, and some little blue stem in between. Little blue stem is one tough plant, and it can outgrow things like quackgrass eventually. We have a backfield of quackgrass, and we dumped a few seeds out, cleanings actually, in it 20 years ago, and it's now all little blue stem. So it is pretty amazing. The deer hunters hunt in here, and they really like it because look at all of those hazelnuts hanging off the hazels. And boy, do deer like those. So this is 11 years, so the lupin patches are getting bigger and bigger, and the trees are starting to, some of the cherries and things are starting to flower. And this is 19 years. So some of the trees are about 40 feet high, and in the middle are, there's bare areas where there's wildflowers still. This is mostly, this nice pink stuff here that the insects like is showy tick trefoil and panicled tick trefoil. Yeah, everybody complains about it, but because it sticks to their clothing. So some of the animals that have disappeared from Norfolk, these are 2 badger pups, or cubs they call them, around an old farm building, and the den was under the building. Unfortunately, the mother was killed on the road, we think. We don't know for sure, and they both died. But no one has seen a badger, an authentic badger observation in Norfolk County since 2012, so, or in southern Ontario. So we think they're probably gone. They were at Spooky Hollow back in the 60s. But we do have some other rare things. And this is Davis's shieldback, katydid. It's not green like most katydids, and it's flightless, and it has a sound that I've got to the age I can't hear it, so I have to drag some young person out into the field to, they can hear it, and then they can just point it out. So Davis's shieldback has moved from edges into our restoration plots, and we walked through, and they were everywhere singing in one of our, it was 21 acres I think that, and they were on multiflora rose, they were on Scots pine, really frustrating, but that's, so you can only see it in Norfolk County. And they range from west of Simcoe south to the properties that are around St. Williams. And that's it. They're not even across the Big Creek, on our side of Big Creek. So very, very range restricted in Canada. And actually probably in the States as well. In fact, one expert on this group said he'd come all the way from Massachusetts to see this species. And it starts singing around the 12th of July and it goes on till frost. So again, just going to look at the Stead property. So we live over here. This is our farm. It's 200 acres, and this is Wilson Tract. And this is the Stead property, 50 acres. And up here was where those photographs of the different years were taken. This is Lake Erie Farms, and the Hamilton Naturalist Club did contribute money for the purchase of that. That came on the market on the 16th of December when we were going Christmas shopping, and it was 400 acres, and you don't buy any property 400 acres in southern Ontario now. It's an old tobacco farm. Both this one, it's interesting, these fields are hidden fields, and people growing tobacco would, and this is probably in the 40s or 50s or whatever, the big tobacco companies would come in and just say, we'll buy everything in this 20-acre field. And so what the farmers would do is they'd farm that and take care of it, and then they'd clear out islands of fields in the forest and plant and pick all that as well and put it in the pile. So that's before they changed the regulations and they were buying not by acre but by pound or kilogram. So both these properties, the far one there is Nature Conservancy property, this one, but we as the Norfolk Field Naturalists and Land Trust were really keen that this be purchased. And there's 53 hectares of restoration work there, and you can see the little fields. 2 years ago, I gave a talk at a conference, the AOU conference in London. It was in London, Ontario. And we went out and counted how many whippoorwills were in that field, and we had 12 male whippoorwills calling in that 400-acre parcel. So the Stead property also has a couple of them. So this is the Stead property here. But the beauty of this one is we did plant seeds in those little fields, but there was a whole bunch of sand barren species around the outside of each of the 5 fields in 50 acres. And it was about 50% field, 50% black oak forest. And so all those special, like New Jersey tea and longleaf bluets and others of these sand barren species were in there. So it was sitting idle, and we talked to Ken Stead and we said, you know, there's a really neat property for insects over here. So he negotiated and bought it, and then a few years ago he donated it to the Land Trust. And this is what it looked like. So the Norfolk Field Naturalists, we were helped by Tree Plan Canada at the time. Martin Newman was working for Tree Plan Canada and got money for this restoration, seed-based restoration. Volunteers collected the seed and planted them. And so it now looks, this was a few years later, and now It's much taller. This is flowering spurge. But the trees are really tall now, but there's still lots of openings. And it's got a very large population of New Jersey tea. So, it's a really great mothing place. And that's what the squirrel was doing. It was mothing at our bait in November. And we were standing actually at the road one night, and it looked like hankies flying through the air. And I was with another person, and I said, look, there's a flying squirrel. And I said, I'm going to count them. And already past, there was a big black oak that was covered in acorns. And and we started counting them, and we had 38. And that wasn't all of them. So they knew where the acorns were, and they were just gliding through all the trees. So it also has lots of hognose snakes. And in our area of Norfolk County, the hognose snakes come in every color. Red, purple, kind of like this one, gray, black, tan, multiple colors. And they're fairly common. They also like to nest in the stead property. And they go down, they make a burrow, and they use their neck or whatever to pull the soil out onto a hill. And you can walk along and you can figure out how big that snake was just by when it withdrew and went over its pile. It takes them several days to dig this. You could see how big it was. And they're often together. Like some people suggest that the young, once they mature, will follow the mother's scent and go to her favorite sand hills for nesting. Sounds a bit mythical to me, but. So New Jersey tea is very common there. And very recently, Jessica Linton has been releasing mottled dusky wings in the restoration sites with the Nature Conservancy of Canada. And this year she's got approval to put mottled dusky wing in the Stead property. And Ken Stead, the former owner, is so pleased because he found the populations in Halton County. So he's keen to see the results of this. So they've set aside about 500 specimens, or 500 hand-reared pupa that are going to hatch into mottled dusky wing for this site.
You should tell us a little bit about mottled dusky wings.
So mottled dusky wings feed on New Jersey tea, both species, prairie redroot as well as New Jersey tea, and there's still remnant populations left in the Rice Lake Plains and 16 Mile Creek and other areas in Halton County. So they have a team in the summer at the Cambridge Butterfly Conservatory, and they go out and catch females, they lay eggs, they release them again, and they raise the young. So this is one that's been released, and it has a little patch of blue on it so they can see that it's that one again, and they want to see how far they move because they were released with New Jersey tea, but they actually moved probably half a kilometer to other parts of that restored site. It's on the east quarter line and Highway 24. So, and of course they're doing what they're supposed to do when you release them. And they had good success with the releases at Pinery Provincial Park. So, and they're self-sustaining right now as far as they can tell. So they've focused on Norfolk County. Now what's interesting is the last sighting of mottled dusky wing in Norfolk County was at the Stead property in 1989 by Don Sutherland. So it's nice to be able to go back there with, there's lots of New Jersey tea there. So this was in 2021, and there's Jessica Linton counting and figuring out how many patches of New Jersey tea there are. And you can see all behind her is New Jersey tea in flower. In 21, there was a big outbreak of spongy moth, and the New Jersey tea was happy because there was less shade. So, but there is lots of New Jersey tea, and we hope to get a successful take with the model dusky wing. And I think that's it. Thank you. So I apologize, I couldn't read my sheet now. So I'm doing it from the top of my head.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions? Brian?
Thanks very much.
Just yell.
Oh, it's just not turned on.
Oh.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, this is actually quite good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You should always have batteries. These things get just
Well, thanks very much, Mary. That was fantastic and incredibly inspirational, as you always are for me, in the decades that I've known you.
Thank you, Brian.
Several times you've mentioned that the HNC had contributed to properties in Norfolk, Conservation Authority, and other locations for Spooky. And it just, is it working now? Okay. It just seems to me that we should be continuing to think about that as a naturalist club, Hamilton Naturalist Club, contributing to Norfolk. I mean, you've got our foot in there in terms of Spooky, so that's one excuse, I suppose. But just the quality of the habitat up there, just given the less development in Hamilton, meadowlands and all the areas that you grew up in, have changed so much in Hamilton. And also, I guess, I mean, that's a comment, I guess, for us to think about as a naturalist club. And maybe just a comment from you that would be helpful. The specific question I have is just any sense of the investment you make in Norfolk, how much per acre is land? Of course, that would range depending where you are and what kind of land use it might be in prior to becoming available. We know in Hamilton the prices have just gone through the roof. Back in the good old days of Vanderbilt and Dundas Valley was able to acquire that land, but now it's very, very difficult. So just any thoughts on land securement, HNC role, and any thoughts on how much it would cost per acre? I guess kind of encouraging us to say, hey, that's a good investment.
Probably Peter could answer that question better than I can.
Go ahead, Peter.
He's been silent, so.
He has been very silent. Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Peter Carson. I'm Mary's driver. I'm one of the founding members of the Long Point Basin Land Trust, which was formed in 1996. And I'm the last guy standing. Everyone else has passed on. So, land prices in Norfolk have skyrocketed. Maybe not to the extent they have in Hamilton, but certainly we feel. Our last purchase, which I'm expecting to see close or offer accepted tonight when I go home, 63, 64 acres, and it goes for $1,425,000. That's $23,000 an acre. It's nice if you can find a parcel that doesn't have a building on it, a building, be barn or house or whatever. Whenever there's some sort of dwelling, the price of course goes up. And there are some difficulties. It'd be nice if you could sever it off and sell it, but unless you're a farmer, you can't do that sort of thing. So land prices are expensive. The other good thing about Norfolk, there really isn't such a thing as a bad spot in Norfolk. So as you can see, these tobacco fields, which have been in production since the 30s, in 5 years we can turn them back to a productive natural habitat. So it's really easy to do restoration in Norfolk. So that means that all of Norfolk is out here, even though we show the red spots on the map. Those are sort of the high priority areas, and they could be. We've done an exercise where we came up with a list of all the parcel sizes, all the parcels, and then we applied to these parcels maybe 10 different criteria. So size, proximity to another protected area, to wetland, a variety of criteria, and then we sorted through it, and this is how our mapping has come about. We'll have endangered species in there and that sort of thing as well. So now, even though all of Norfolk has potential, we try and focus what we're doing on these areas that we've identified as being the highest priority. And a lot of what we're doing now is trying to block road, so adjacent to areas which are already protected, because we know that things better when it comes to natural history restoration. Thanks.
Yes, I have a question about the 4 moths, that picture. There was a pink one and a red one, the moths. They weren't butterflies, were they?
Yeah, 4 moths.
Yeah, it was moths.
And
Yeah.
the question is, what part of the tree do they feed on, and do they ever get out of hand and destroy a tree?
I didn't quite,
The 4 months and
yeah.
Almost all these moths will feed on leaves. There are some moths which actually will feed on leaves, and Mary can talk about one in a minute, which is very interesting. But most of these moths, as caterpillars, will feed on leaves. And when you say get out of become too numerous to cause problems or something like that, well, maybe spongy moth or it used to be gypsy moth. I don't know. Politically correct, I guess. Spongy moth. Usually moths or insects in general that get out of control are things which have been introduced into an area that are not native to an area. Native things are usually kept in check by appropriate predators in the area.
The other thing that's important about moths is they're kind of leveling in terms of competition between trees and forest floor vegetation. And then we're in an area where there's 3 layers of woody plants and then the ground layer. So they create opportunities for diversity by eating a lot of the parts of those plants. And my little story is about something called a brocade. It's a moth. And I caught one in, actually I think I just picked it off the moth sheet. And it was bigger it looked like a familiar one, but it was 23 millimeters, not 14. and I think it was Norman's brocade like. So I sent an email off with a photograph to Dave Beadle, and I said, do you know what this is? And he says, oh, it's this or that, you know, common moths. And I said, well, it's quite big. So he said, well, put a ruler beside it, photograph it, and send it off to me. And my last word was, I'd looked it up on a moth photographer's website. I said, could it be Titan, which is a big moth that's much farther south? And he says, absolutely, it's a Titan, I'm coming down right away to photograph it. So the first year we had 1, the second year we had 11, the third year we had 33, the fourth year we had 70, and we don't count them anymore. So they are on the grass. Someone gave us a handful of eastern gamma grass. And we planted it, and it's like, you know, 30 or 20 meters by 20 meters. And it's just stayed like that for years. It's like a big, big blue stem. It's like this tall, and this is the borer moth that's on it in Virginia, West Virginia, New Jersey, and any population. And it's the moth is rare, and the plant is fairly rare. So I mean, I like to tell a story because people say, how did that little thing find its way all the way north into Canada and manage to survive?
And thrive.
Yes, actually.
Sounds like it's doing very well.
Dave Beadle came to our place, and he had his mothing buddies with him, and they were sort of getting antsy, and they wanted to leave and do something or whatever. And he says, you're staying here and you're going through that trap because you will never see that moth anywhere else in Canada. And I said, I want to know how many, you know, you saw and photographed and let go. And they said 10. So you just never know. We have tall grass prairie plants, and their moths have, which we only sell, when we do sell it, we sell it to Windsor, because that's where they came from. But the moths have found them, the borer moths. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Give it to me too early. Okay, so, yeah, there are a lot of, like, species that are generally, like I noticed in the presentation, that aren't generally found in urban areas like Hamilton, like the snakes, basically, flying squirrel, basically. Oh, and like there are a couple of like and those badgers as well. And Doug Ford basically wants to look into speeding up development of like homes and highways and stuff like that. So what's going to happen to these species if that were to basically happen, like these sensitive like species and stuff like that?
It's hard to say, but the habitats really, a badger really doesn't care where it is, as long as it doesn't get run over. Roadkill is the highest cause of their mortality. Distemper is the next, and shooting because it attacked your dog. And actually, the dog attacked it, but anyway.
Or they send their dog to like kill it as well.
Well, and there's misinformation out there. Someone who is, and I'm not naming any names, but someone who is responsible for training hunters and trappers said, well, if you trap a badger, they're all over the place, don't worry about it. That's what he's teaching the trappers and hunters. So it's just totally untrue. The person that studied them, he had one badger that was between Vanessa, somewhere between, he had a collar on it, or not a collar, a tag on it, and it was somewhere between Vanessa and Simcoe. Like, that's a long way, and it was somewhere in there as a male, and that was his territory, a big chunk between Vanessa and Simcoe. Simcoe it kind of liked because there's a lot of garbage cans, so it did get seen a few times, but We had in one field we were doing restoration work in, there was a burrow there, and there was a female badger, and Josh trapped it and put a tag on it, and it ended up at Port Bruce. It ran all that way to Port Bruce. And he had 2 badgers, with a male and a female, with tags on, with radio tags. And they were, at the beginning of the night, they were 8 kilometers apart. And by the end of the night, they were together. I mean, these things see the landscape like we see the inside of our homes, the whole landscape. Anyway, so all these things are, you know, things you worry about. And that's why we're in the restoration business, all of us. Restoration and land acquisition business is to protect these islands of hope. Yes?
Yeah, I just have a general question about, I guess, land trusts in general. 2 years ago, I purchased 23 acres of, it was formerly agricultural land. It's on a floodplain, it's got a creek going through it, and I have literally done nothing with it. I bought it just to protect it. And so my ultimate goal is to donate it, and I would like it to be restored. So I guess my question is what can I do now? Like I'm not necessarily looking to sell it, but I would like to see it restored. Like I'm willing to have, look at some kind of, I don't know if they exist, like a conservation agreement. Like I said, I just don't know what to do with it because it's just sitting there. I'm protecting it. I bought it, but I don't know where to go with it. It's, I guess, what I'm asking. Any suggestions?
Yeah, it's we advocate for the seed-based restoration because, and we don't try and plant different things in different places unless it's really obvious. Like a wetland, you'd plant wetland plants, but otherwise we just plant everything everywhere and they sort themselves out. But almost no one in Ontario is doing seed-based restoration. And some of the conservation authorities have nurseries and they're planting trees, but the trees aren't surviving. One of the problems with land that's been cleared is that all the European weeds come in, and a few Canadian weeds that are just as bad, like Canada fleabane. And Peter and I experienced it in Ivory Coast. You walk for miles through old-growth rainforest in Ivory Coast, and you come out in a little coffee plantation, and there's Canada fleabane.
Wow.
So it's atmospheric, but it needs disturbance. But yeah, I just perhaps go online on Society for Ecological Restoration, and or become a member. But I think the best thing is to go back to cropping for, like, rent it out for corn or soybeans or whatever, unless it's all grown up.
It's basically overgrown. Hadn't been used as agricultural property for
Okay.
years. It was part of a larger farm.
Okay.
And they just used this as pasture. And they sold off this 23-acre parcel.
Huh.
And like I said, it is pretty weedy, but I figure it has potential. It's not a stream.
So if it's pasture, that's one of the hardest ones to restore. And we had this experience with the Nature Conservancy at Point Abino. It was a pasture for 20 years. And the NCC planted or rented it out to a farmer, and it was wheat one year, which is not great. Wheat isn't great for restoration. And the next year it was soybeans. And then it was all plowed and we sowed it. And nothing survived. It just went straight back to Timothy. Timothy has toxic pollen. It pollinates all the other plants, making them think they've been pollinated. So pasture is Timothy. The other thing you might consider is to just create Timothy red clover over the whole thing and have no trees, and then you'll have bobolinks and meadowlarks. 23 acres is just enough to sustain those 2 species on that site. and you'll get all the grassland birds, gets mowed in the fall, gets replanted if necessary, and just keep turning over that system with those two species. And we've seen a golf course in St. Thomas where they had planted fields for horse hay, and it was just timothy and red clover, and it was there were bobolinks and meadowlarks everywhere. That's just one solution. The other one is to clean it all up and till it and make sure there's no plants growing, and then switch straight over to a rich mix.
Maybe one more question? Yeah, go for it,
Just a
Shane.
quick question about the Virginia Mountain Mint. So you mentioned it scored highest in terms of nectar quality and volume.
It's a Michigan study.
Okay.
They looked at it from, I think, just for wildlife, but it was 10 times the production of the next best tested plant.
Does that include other species in the same genus?
Probably. There are 4 in Ontario. One's very rare. And the other 2 occur mainly in odd places across Ontario or in Essex County. I've seen them all in Essex County in prairies. But Virginia Mountain Mint is the commonest one.
If anyone has follow-up questions after, can I ask you afterwards?
You'll be around for a few minutes?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
Or maybe
because you've got more to do, right?
Well,
And it's almost 9 o'clock.
I just have to thank you. That's all I let's thank Mary again for sharing her expertise, and Peter also. It's been wonderful to hear your stories and your expertise, as well as the cool things that the Long Point Basin Land Trust is doing, some different restoration techniques, and just the species, that Norfolk County magic. I'm not kidding. Some of you have maybe heard me talk about that. Now you can see it really is. So if you haven't been down there, for a while, I'd suggest going down. It's just, the flowers right now are crazy, and not just garlic mustard. It's a very, very special place. So I'd encourage you to go and check it out. Maybe even find because some of the properties are accessible.
A lot of them are.
Okay, so on the website, Long Point Basin Land Trust website, you can find out the properties that are accessible, and maybe you could go and check them out. So thanks also to all of you for coming out tonight. And here are some tips now that it's outside season, or even more comfortable. I guess it's always outside season. It's more comfortable outside season. So here are some suggestions for where you can go, and you can help with Falcon Watch as well. Another fun local outside season activity. So thanks everybody, and I think Mary and Peter will be around for a few minutes if you have any other questions. And there were some cookies left as well that they don't want to all go home to one place. So let's share the love and help them out. Okay, thanks everybody.